All right, fastest 15 minutes on the internet, fastest 15 minutes in social media, and my name is Judson Powell. Okay, I got a beef today. I'm sorry, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit all the buttons for me. Anyway, the NFL draft um, over the last few days, and some very disturbing news: the fact that nobody from a historically black college or university um, was selected in the draft, and we know that cannot possibly be a realistic thing. Um, there are a lot of HBCU graduates and players that are in the Hall of Fame. Um, I just don't get it. I'm just speechless, to tell you the truth. And it's like, and that's why we keep telling y'all um, that this whole thing is ridiculous. And it's a concerted effort and a concerted plot. Remember that the whole Colin Kaepernick and the all that stuff. What did it? It started with the NFL, and it started with the NFL trying to, put the whole clamps on kneeling for the anthem and all that kind of stuff. But and then they tried to swing it and make it. In fact, I think more so than anything else, they made it into racism. They did all the stuff that they had to do to make it racism and to make it racially motivated. It wasn't racially motivated. It wasn't disrespectful to the troops. It wasn't disrespectful. In fact, it was if you read deeper into it, you'll find out that it was actually a soldier that suggested the thing to Kaepernick. All right. So I'm kind of upset because of the fact that, this is like the last bastion of pure white supremacy and racism that we have. There are no black owners. We got some general managers, we got some coaches, we got, stuff like that. We got, we finally got to the point where we could have black quarterbacks. But face it, the whole thing behind all of that was that they didn't want to put a black face on the National Football League. And early on, they didn't want to have black quarterbacks because it was too much like that black person was the face of a city. See, because, they kind of basically put football teams to every city. The other thing is they take tax dollars to build all these stadiums. Owners hold entire regions of the country hostage. They hold these people hostage because they're like, okay, if you don't build a stadium for us, then we're gonna leave. Oakland, like the Oakland Raiders, they just moved to Las Vegas. Why? Because the city of Oakland wouldn't build them a stadium. And San Diego has done, moved to LA. The Rams have moved to St. Louis and then back, and they won't build them a stadium. So whoever decided, and then the the St. Louis Cardinals ended up, now they're the Arizona Cardinals, and all kinds of crazy stuff. But it's all a big game of extortion. It's extortion at the highest levels. They're saying, look, if you don't give us a stadium, if you don't do this for us or whatever, then when you really research it, I used to work for, well, I didn't work for, but I was a contractor for the NFL for several years. And while I was a contractor for the NFL, I found out that most of the people that are working in the stadiums on game days are paid under minimum wage. And a lot of them are volunteers. And meanwhile, you've got players, and I'm not trying to come down, but you got players making millions of dollars. You got owners making billions of dollars. You got television contracts which are worth, hundreds of millions of dollars, and probably in the next few years, these contracts are going to be worth, more than that. I'm talking about local TV. And then national TV, you already got billion-dollar contracts. And you got people coming in the stadium under nonprofits, because that's what I ran. I ran a nonprofit. And once we found out it's basically the NFL is like the world's largest nonprofit. And because they're a nonprofit, they get away with writing off a lot of things and doing a lot of things. But here's the thing: not to choose any not to choose any historically black college or university players at all. You can't tell me there's not one, person in any of those colleges that could not play at the next level. And what does that mean? It means that anybody that was in those schools, now what do they got to do? They got to go and put themselves in a powerless position, because when you negotiate, you always negotiate from a point of strength and not from a point of weakness. But now that you weren't drafted, you gotta get tryouts, walk on, to try to get, even in the combine and all of those things. Why weren't they invited? So you mean to tell me not a single solitary one, nobody had good, 40-yard dash times. Nobody was a good enough receiver. Remember, Jerry Rice is a Hall of Famer, and he didn't, he went to Mississippi Valley State University. All right. Walter Payton. I mean, we could start naming all these players, that went to these smaller schools, and some of them just went to smaller schools because they just weren't on the radar. And now this right here, it sends a clear message. And the clear message, and the fact of the matter is that it's being spurred on by the coaches that are going to coach in the HBCUs, like Deion Sanders, right? So it's like all of a sudden now, it's a war. And so and you notice that they made sure that the great white hope from Clemson University was selected first in the draft. And as usual, they always choose somebody. And how many of those players, and I'm just being honest, how many of those white players panned out, the first picks? The greatest quarterback in the history of the league is Tom Brady. Tom Brady, wasn't even, he wasn't even considered to be a good prospect. Coming out of Michigan. And all of a sudden, he wins more Super Bowls, more accolades, been to more Super Bowls. I think pretty much almost every year that he's been around, they've been in contention. And now, for New England, and now he won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay when New England said he was washed up. So, and the other thing is they don't know. Because one thing about football, in fact, one thing about any sport is that you can't judge heart or effort or, you can't, these are things that are intangibles. Work ethic, all those kind of things cannot be determined. And a lot of times you got kids that are underdogs that their work ethic is far superior than a guy that's highly touted, and and they're talking about him all the time. Why? Because it just becomes easy for him. Because of the opportunity. See, a lot of times, and this is just in life in general, it ain't really the talent or anything like that. You know what it is? It's just somebody gives you an opportunity. And then when you get the opportunity, you just show up every day and work hard. But now it just seems like we're not even given the opportunity to show up every day. we're not given the opportunity to show our effort, our work ethic, and all of that. It's ridiculous. And to say that larger program, and then they have this thing, they're always they have their certain coaches in college football and certain teams. Why is it that out of all the teams, that basically it's about the same, about 10 schools that are in contention every year. All of this stuff is collusion. And the fact of the matter is, and then not paying college players when they're literally, television contracts are worth billions of dollars in college football. There are several stadiums that hold 100,000 people in it. How many games? I forget how many games they play, but they're going to have 7 or 8 games where the school is going to, just off of what's in the stadium alone. And we did, and we did that too. I used to look at it, my goodness, we had a contract with Georgia Tech. And I was like, wow, and every time they play, the entire stadium is full, right? University of Michigan several years ago said, look, we could run our entire campus off of a couple of football games. We could give everybody here a free ride scholarship just off of the football program alone. But and what I want to know is, where is all that money going and who is getting that money? Because there's not really accountability. Nobody, you can see the budget for the school year or whatever, but all of that money that comes in off of that television revenue, off, all those commercials and everything else that they show during the football games, most major conferences have a football network. Most of the major conferences, not only do they have a football network and they show the games every weekend, but a lot of the schools independently have their own network. So where is all this money going? Where is it coming from? Where is it going? But yet and still, you still get stories about, all of a sudden, and they try to punish the kids. They punish the kids for being what? For being what they are and being what the country is founded on, which is capitalism. So you teach somebody how to be a capitalist all their life, and then if they accept something, then all of a sudden they're the bad guy. They got the mark against them. But meanwhile, you got all of these athletic directors, college presidents, major coaches. Coaches are getting millions of dollars to coach these teams. And besides a scholarship, what do the players get? Nothing. Some of them can't even afford a burger. So then when people come up, the boosters or whatever it be, when people come up and offer them money, then all of a sudden, the student athlete is a criminal. And they make every effort they can to vilify these dudes. The same thing once they get in the league. You cannot expect that a kid that comes from the hood, just because you give him money, he's all of a sudden going to be a great person. And all y'all wanted them for was to play football anyway. Y'all never intended these people to be good people or good citizens or anything like that. They just wanted to play football. And now they're not even good enough to play football. It's a huge slap in the face and a huge mistake on the part of the National Football League, just like they did with Colin Kaepernick. It's a huge mistake. Huge. It's a huge mistake. The National Football League should be ashamed. All of the teams should be ashamed to say that. You mean to tell me there was not one historically black college or university that had one player that even had just one player with all the bad teams. That's why the same thing we said about Colin Kaepernick. It was like, you mean to tell me all the bad quarterbacks that they got in the league, they got some horrible quarterbacks, but you mean to tell me he wasn't worth one spot? Fastest 15 minutes is up. I'm ticked. I love you though.